Hello, and thank you so much to MS Direct and Plug and Play for having me present on this fantastic session. I'm going to start today by talking about green e-commerce, what's next. So here I'm trying to summarize just a taster of some of the biggest trends I'm seeing around e-commerce, but specifically the relationship between sustainability and e-com. So in this kind of short session, I'm just going to give you a whistle-stop tour, some of the biggest things that I'm seeing. So who am I? Well, I'm Jack Stratten, Head of Trends at Insider Trends. We're a retail consultancy based in London. We help brands like this to spot what's coming next in retail. Let me begin by just very briefly laying a little bit of context for some of the interesting use cases and examples and ideas that I'm seeing globally. So consumer trends and what really matters to shoppers. Now, there's so many different things I could be talking about here, but I'm just going to very briefly focus on the relationship between cost and sustainability as kind of maybe the two big things that are going on at the moment. Customers at the moment undoubtedly care an enormous amount about what they're spending and cost, because most countries in the world are looking at, if not a recession, then certainly a bit of an economic downturn. These are global figures. Firstly, 69% of consumers plan to cut back on non-essential spending. 40% are buying fewer things and consuming less. 71% are proactively looking for sale items when shopping. Now, the significant thing about these figures is that they are a big increase in what we've seen on recent years, even COVID. There is a definite and clear atmosphere globally of saving money and of worrying about cost. That's really, really important when we're talking about sustainability, because undoubtedly there is still a perception in the market that sustainability costs extra. So we see these surveys all the time that talk about whether someone's willing to pay more for sustainability. And on that note, 57% of customers want retailers to become more sustainable. That shouldn't surprise. We know, and we've probably all seen lots of different statistics that show that the appetite for sustainability is clear. But at the same time, 61% of the same customers are more concerned about cost than sustainability. That's very significant. And perhaps to look at it slightly differently, I use an example that I often use, which is what shoppers say versus what shoppers do. So here's something I found. More than 70% of shoppers now say they will pay more for sustainable brands and products within the fashion industry. Great. But at the exact same time, the global fast fashion industry is growing by around 50% a year, or $20 billion. Now, we all know that fast fashion, for better or worse, and without making any judgment of that industry, is probably the least sustainable retail sector. And if that's growing, then simply put, consumers aren't necessarily being as sustainable or thinking as sustainably as they might be. There's a difference between what we say and what we do. It's as simple as that. Now, my kind of takeaway from all of this is that we need to make it simpler for customers. That needs to be the goal for the retail industry as a whole, whether we're suppliers, tech companies, the brands themselves, supply chain partners, whatever we're doing. It's about not how can we offer the cheapest products or how can we offer the most sustainable whilst being more expensive somehow. Sustainability has to be part of the business, and it has to not cost any extra money for the consumer. That perspective needs to change. We need to be able to create a world where, as far as the customers are concerned, they don't have to pay more to be sustainable and to be doing the right thing. I think that's the most important thing that the stats from my point of view are starting to reflect. So with that in mind, I'm just going to touch on a few things with a few kind of use cases underneath that reflect some trends that I'm seeing in terms of how sustainability is influencing e-commerce, or rather some of the best ideas I'm seeing from a sustainable point of view within the e-com world. Now, I've got a couple of examples here that feel more related to stores, but actually they're purely about how stores are being used to make e-commerce more sustainable. I call it omni-sustainability. So here's a good starting point for this. Grosvenor Group in London have found that 83% of customers prefer to shop nearby instead of online if they know an item is available in a nearby store. Importantly, when customers go locally or walk to the local high street to buy something, as opposed to maybe a lorry driving it from one end of the country to the other, that potentially is a very sustainable transaction. That's why I think this is a positive thing. This is something interesting. And then I think, well, how can e-com tap into this? How can e-com work with stores to lead to something positive? And here are a couple of great examples. So Near Street, which I encourage everyone to look up, they're a brilliant business. Near Street, essentially from the consumer's point of view, is an app where you can search by product rather than store within a map, within a kind of simple app online. And it will tell you the nearest stores that stock that item, provided they're linked with Near Street as well. Most of London now uses Near Street and it works incredibly well. And it's kind of retailer agnostic. So rather than favouring Argos or some big retailer, it simply tells you the nearest location, therefore ensuring that your journey and the miles that you eat up in that transaction are lessened. And I think that's brilliant. Pinger do a very similar thing. There's lots of tech companies working in this area to improve this. I think it's really, really interesting. And another way I think the stores are being used to improve the sustainability of e-com transactions is stores that are opening up to solve returns or to improve the efficiency of transaction and specifically delivery. So Box opened up in Helsinki, and you have DPD in Berlin in Germany, many other examples where actually a supply chain company, a postal service, are opening stores and the customer comes to pick up their delivery and actually unboxes it at that location. And then if it isn't right or they need to return it, there's no further kind of transaction. There's no sending things, wrapping it up. You do everything there and then at the premises. It's a simple idea, but quite a powerful one. And Box have reported this massively reducing returns within Helsinki over the last few years. I think it's a really, really cool idea. So stores actually have a big role to play when it comes to making e-com greener, in my opinion. And that's a trend that I'm seeing all over the world. Embracing re-commerce. So these are some, I just wanted to touch briefly on how e-com has a massive role to play also in the resale trend that's happening. Now, what is that trend? Well, there are lots of examples around the world of it now. The RealReal in the US is one of my favorites. So the RealReal is essentially an online marketplace for selling and exchanging previously worn and previously owned luxury clothing. And it's absolutely taken off. Consumers love it because it had never really been something associated with luxury. And the real change down is happening all over the world now. They are opening stores like this one, but actually it's online where that world has been built, and there's huge demand building up for this. And the brilliant thing is RealReal don't talk about sustainability, but of course, that's exactly what this is. It's so much better for the kind of the life cycle of some of these luxury items for marketplaces to exist. And very importantly, it's making sustainability cool. And that's a really important thing. That's a struggle I think the fashion industry, for example, has had. So making it kind of appealing to the customer. The RealReal is a brilliant example of that. I think the best examples of re-commerce, though, resale and reuse and repair, are when digital first brands, which is kind of what Nudie Jeans are, they're an online and physical store business, but when that can be built into the business itself. So when you buy Nudie Jeans online or wherever you buy it, automatically you're buying that pair for life because you can get it repaired for free or exchanged for another pair, and then they then reuse the denim. And this is a fully omni-channel thing. So this is happening online as much as it is in store. So I think having sustainability built into the business model is incredibly important. I think with any ideas we start to have in retail, when it's kind of just crowbarred in, it has so much less impact than when it's part of the DNA of the business, as is the case with Nudie Jeans. From a pure ecom perspective, this is one of the best things I've seen though. Benny is a plugin for search engines, and it allows you as a shopper that when you're looking for particular items, so say Canada Goose Parker here, it will immediately tell you a pre-loved, pre-worn version of that, probably for much less money, that you can buy there and then. So it tells you always if there's a secondhand version available somewhere online. I think it's such a brilliant idea. Very soon, I think we'll see retailers using this or a version of this to do this, because it kind of removes any friction from the buying experience online of secondhand clothing or secondhand items of any kind. Reducing returns is something I think I needed to touch on. And I think this will be discussed much more in the session later, something I'm really passionate about. For me, the big theme within reducing returns, I keep on reading studies that talk about visualization being the key problem. Many people think the reason people returned to stores after COVID in large numbers was actually the lack of visualization they had at home. So they were sick of their fitting room, dressing room experience being where they lived, where they spent all their time, right, as consumers. So what I'm now seeing is really, really good tools, and often the use of augmented reality to allow people to visualize at home, and therefore to reduce returns. Taylor do this brilliantly in the kind of suit and tailored suit world. So the augmented reality takes an accurate set of measurements of you, which ensures that you get the right tailored suit, the right fit, without the need to return. Great for growing e-com brands in this world, but even more importantly, reducing returns significantly. That's what Taylor are all about, actually, reducing returns. And I just wanted to touch on the fact that this is happening in all sectors. So the examples that are playing in the background here are actually around furniture, DIY. So Furniture Village do it with sofas. So they use a technology company called Hullabaloo, who help to create really great visualization of furniture at home to ensure that you get the right one and you don't have problems. Lowe's are doing this brilliantly, so that you can get accurate quotes without having to leave your home, and you can just scan a room and basically get correct sizing for flooring, for carpets. Wayfair historically have used augmented reality as well for exactly the same reason. At-home visualization now through augmented reality is really, really improving, and stopping the need for us to just keep going back and forth and creating these long buying journeys that have a very long carbon footprint. And also the byproduct is, I should mention the conversion rates and increase in spend happens as well. So yes, they're sustainable, but most importantly as well, they actually help businesses to grow. And finally, maybe my favorite example of this, Hero, and there's so many tech companies doing this. Hero teams up as a technology company with brands. And what it does is it connects online shoppers with in-store customer service advisors. So you could be shopping for an item at home, and you can then, through Hero, message someone who's in a store and say, could you send me a picture of this particular item? I can't see the inside of this jacket or this bag at home, so could you send me that picture? Or you can actually be added to a queue to have a live video chat with that person in store. As you can imagine, people really love this because people love the kind of, the human connection involved in retail wherever possible. But what I really like about it is, again, beyond just increase in spend, actually, it makes people 50% more likely to keep their purchases. That's massive. So simply by connecting in-store customer service advisors, and I say Hero, the great thing about this technology is what you're really looking at is FaceTime. And I mean, a messenger service is what this essentially is. So small retailers can do it as well. But I think this is one of those great, simple ideas that actually has a very powerful kind of potential. And finally, just a couple of things that I think just are kind of ideas that I saw that I loved that I just wanted to mention. And there are so many of these, but I just wanted to share a couple big green ideas. So firstly, Ask It. Again, for me, the best ideas are always simple. Ask It have started using the impact receipt. So whenever a customer buys an item online or offline, they're sent a very detailed impact receipt that tells them the environmental impact of that particular item. I love this for lots of reasons, but what I really like is that it ensures that the consumer is aware of their own responsibility in terms of sustainability and the environment. It makes sure that they start to kind of feel part of that process, and that it can't always be about businesses having to do something and we as consumers just do what we want and wait for businesses to improve. It makes us part of that relationship as well. And I really, really like that simple, powerful idea. And another simple, powerful idea here, Tesco. And obviously when businesses like Tesco do positive things in terms of sustainability, it really does have an impact. And here it's at the supply chain end. So Tesco have created an online swap shop for suppliers. So Tesco suppliers can now cut production costs and reduce waste by selling or donating surplus stock or products to other suppliers who can use them. So it's like an eBay in this kind of supply chain world, and so many people use it. So positive. But it's a very useful thing as well. It's not just doing something green. These suppliers will do it because it can save them money as well. Brilliant idea. And finally, I love Farmstead. It's an AI company focused on small kind of localized business. So what the app does as a customer is that when you can put a food order in to Farmstead on the Farmstead app, and then Farmstead, using the AI, finds the best local suppliers for your items. So it might come from 4 or 5 different nearby stores. And then someone will go around on a bicycle and pick them all up. So you get the freshest, most local items. And as a customer, you're just dealing with Farmstead and actually don't mind where it comes. Sometimes they deal directly with farms. You get great produce, really, really good quality stuff. You also get it affordably. And I just think that's a fantastic application of AI. And again, I encourage anyone to look up Farmstead and what they're doing, because I think it's a really great business. Final thoughts. I think whenever I'm touching on sustainability, I would like to share kind of my big idea that underpins all of this. And it's about the need to move from sustainability to transparency, different language. Why? This is a great example. Echo Plaza, a supermarket in Amsterdam years ago, that did a plastic-free aisle and had a big campaign online about it. And they said, look at this, our plastic-free aisle, and customers criticised and said, well, we can see lots of plastic. Echo Plaza came back and they said, well, this plastic is biodegradable. And then customers came back and said, well, biodegradable plastic only biodegrades if it doesn't end up in the ocean, and most plastic does. So this doesn't work. And within days, they'd removed this, and it became a bit of a PR disaster for them. And it's representative of a much bigger problem, which is that retailers spend too much time talking about sustainability, doing big sustainability things, you know. And I think instead, it's about taking a step back and just making sure that you, as a business, as a technology company, whoever you are transparent in everything we do. That respects the intelligence of the customer, and also the seriousness of the issues that the planet faces. And I think one of the best businesses at doing this is Tony's Chocolonely. They are perceived as one of the world's most sustainable brands, but you will never see them talking about sustainability. You will never see them praising themselves. What you will see is them actually actively telling people when they've made a mistake or when something has gone wrong. So they are trying to make their supply chain completely child labor free, but whenever they spot it, they tell the world about it. And I think that's fantastic. And that's the move to transparency, because people, as a result, trust them. They trust the brand to do the right thing. So that move from sustainability to transparency, I think, has to sit at the heart of every conversation we have about sustainability.